Good evening. Welcome to the Board of Trustees meeting in the Village of Pleasantville. Today is Monday, August 9, 2010. So if you're watching live today, Monday, August 9, we encourage you to call in if you have comments or questions. Our call-in number is 769-1677. As always, you can watch us on cable TV, Cablevision, that is, and also on PCTV76.org. You can pick up both live webcasts of meetings as they happen and also on-demand video of meetings that have happened in the past. So I mentioned that you can only watch on Cablevision at the moment. Verizon Fios subscribers can anticipate that the public access channels will be up and running before long. Verizon had 180 days from the point of the approval of their contract to complete the connections to the PCTV studio, to Village Hall, and to the school district. And I know some calls have been received this week from Verizon technicians because that deadline is rapidly approaching, and so we're optimistic that soon Verizon Fios customers will have the opportunity to get public access TV as well. So we have a number of things I wanted to touch on in the form of announcements. And the first was to remind everybody that the farm market is going great guns. If you haven't been down to the new farm market, it's worth a visit to see it. We've rearranged at the advice of our farm market committee under the leadership of Peter Raghavan, and our farm market is now in a horseshoe arrangement at the north end of the plaza. Some of you may have noticed that we made a cut through the median in Memorial Plaza, so it's possible to get from one side to the other, that is from the commuter parking side to the post office side at both the ends and also the middle. And that allowed us to put the farm market at the north end. It's turned out to be a great success. Not only gave us room for more vendors, it gave us a better place for the trucks that supply the stands, and it also created a much more pedestrian-friendly environment where people are not having to keep one eye out for the cars that are pulling in and out of parking spaces. So it's been a great success. I think the preliminary numbers in terms of attendance suggest that the numbers are up as well. We have more people visiting, we have more vendors, we have more stuff, and we're now coming into the prime produce season, so I encourage you to come on down and visit. I thank our state senator, Andrea Stewart-Cousins, who visited the farm market last week for the purpose of making a video. All of the New York State senators make a video that is sent off and shown at the New York State Fair, which is in late August in Syracuse. And this year, Andrea Stewart-Cousins chose the Pleasantville Farm Market as the site for the video for her district. And so she came with a television crew last week and interviewed a bunch of people, including farm market vendors as well as some of the patrons. And it was a great day all the way around, and delighted to have that little bit of PR on behalf of the Pleasantville Farm Market. Any of you who might be passing your way through Grand Central Station, if you can find a moment to go into the MTA exhibition gallery, which is over near Junior's Cheesecakes, you will find that they're currently showing an exhibition that's called 25 Years of the MTA Arts for Transit. And if you make your way to the back of that gallery, you'll find that the Pleasantville train station is featured quite prominently. This set of artist chairs that we have arrayed in our overpass bridge and down on the platform were part of an MTA Art for Transit project of about 10 years ago. And I'm happy to report that it was included in this exhibition and also in a rather nice book. So Pleasantville gets a nice little plug there, and it's worth a visit if you happen to find yourself in Grand Central. As I say, it's over on the west side of the station in the area near Junior's Cheesecakes. So
where is it exactly?
it's
Near Gate 30
it's
over
over
that
it's over near Gate 30. It's directly opposite the escalators that take you down to the lower level.
Right. Oh, the
Right near
room,
by the
right,
station
right,
master's
got
office.
it.
So it's a fun thing, and there's a very nice book actually that's been out for I think a couple of years, which is a catalog of many of the projects, and there is a really nice double-page spread of the Pleasantville train station. So that's been a fun project, and one that I'm happy to say was viewed by the MTA as one of the more successful ones, and therefore in their show. Last time we had a public meeting, I mentioned the trouble that existed between the Stellaris Health Network, which includes both Northern Westchester Hospital, Phelps, Lawrence Hospital, and White Plains Medical Center, and Empire Blue Cross Blue Shield. At the time, they were at loggerheads in a new contract, and the Empire Blue Cross plans were not being accepted. A number of efforts had been made on the government side in various places, including some substantial efforts from Supervisor Paul Feiner in Greenberg to try to help push that matter along. And I'm happy to report that last week it was announced that the logjam had broken and a new contract has been signed with Stellaris, and so the Empire Blue Cross plans are now accepted again at the 4 Stellaris hospitals. That problem has been resolved, and it has been resolved on behalf of our employees in the Village of Pleasantville who are covered by Blue Cross. So that was a happy development, and then now we'll just wait to see what the next conflict is between an insurer and the next group of hospitals. So by point of reference, if anyone would like to comment on this in the coming days and weeks, we received a petition from a variety of people in the Pleasantville Conservation Advisory Committee and the Green Pleasantville Group requesting that we consider a leaf blower regulation in the Village of Pleasantville. There are a number of communities that have passed bans of various kinds, which limit the use of gasoline-powered leaf blowers at certain times or at certain seasons, and these petitions ask us to consider the same. So if anybody has any opinions on that matter, pro, con, or matters of substance about exactly how such a thing might be implemented, we'd be happy to hear it. You can let any of us know or send a note to Patty Dwyer here at Village Hall, and we'll collect that information as we consider the request that's before us. We received the other day a plaque, Your Tax Dollars at Work, from Census 2010. The Village of Pleasantville has received a 10. I assume that's a 10 out of 10 for its support of the 2010 census. Evidently, something like 70% of Pleasantville households returned the census form, and that is evidently a pretty good result by national standards. And so we've received this plaque, which we will, I suppose, do something with.
Recycle.
Our tax dollars at work.
The plaque.
But the main point to be said is thanks to all of you who picked up the census form and filled it out and sent it back, because that form actually has some significance to us in terms of how government aid and government expenses are apportioned, and so it's important that we're properly counted. In addition to which, it provides pretty useful information, some of which we use in our planning going forward to sort of assess what's going on in terms of population trends in the Village of Pleasantville. So 10 out of 10 for the Village of Pleasantville in the census.
Did you notice our plaque's a little chipped here? Just a minute.
Okay.
Just a little bit chipped.
We are going to have to send that back. That must have been intended for a community that got a 9 out of 10. Two other things I want to comment on. One was there have been a number of missives that have come out of the State Controller's office over the last couple of weeks, and I will bore you with the summary details of a couple of them. The first was a press release that was issued on July 19th, which was the end of the the end of the second quarter for New York State. And the State Controller, Thomas DiNapoli, reported that New York State ended its fiscal quarter in the red, a total of $87.1 million deficit. That is only the second time in modern history that New York State has ended a fiscal quarter in the red, and DiNapoli reports, and I quote, "New York's cash umbrella may not be big enough." So I guess that's a nice way of saying it. But at any rate, his office, the Controller's office, followed that up a couple of weeks ago with an annual report on the state of local governments and school districts. And part of it is an effort to put in context the fiscal constraints that exist at the state level and their impacts on local government, but also to do some quantitative analysis of what's going on at the local level. And I'll just read a couple of highlights that I pulled out here, including what we already know, that the state is in an extremely dire budget position, and that has obviously got a negative effect on all of the governments below Albany. So DiNapoli says, and I quote, "In the coming years, local governments and school districts will have to continue dealing with the trickle-down effect of revenue shortfalls experienced at the state level as the state faces sizable out-year budget gaps. Schools and municipalities have already had to contend with the fallout from the state's difficulties in the form of delayed aid payments as the state struggles with severe cash shortages. And to further complicate matters, stimulus money will essentially run dry by December 2010 for counties, and by September 2011 for schools. Absent federal extension, localities will be hard-pressed to replace those dollars. So that actually will have relatively little impact, indeed no impact, on the Village of Pleasantville, because we are not dependent on any stimulus money, nor do we get any significant state aid. It certainly will have an effect on the school district as the state aid is apportioned over time. But a couple of other snippets of this that I think are worth reading is that in the category of the state and local governments, DiNapoli writes, although a few economic indicators are showing positive signs, the outlook for New York's local government continues to be mixed. The state's current unemployment rate is down from the same period last year, but on an annual basis, it remains the highest it has been since 1992. Sales tax revenues are no longer in free fall, but growth is marginal in the majority of counties. The housing market is beginning to recover, but there remain pockets in the state where the foreclosure rate and declining home values continue to be problematic. He follows by saying, based on the current economic indicators, the road to fiscal recovery for local governments is likely to be long and arduous. The two pieces of it that are of special interest to us, because they're the two areas that we actually do receive revenue from, are mortgage recording tax and sales tax, and the summary snippet on those two categories are in the category of mortgage recording tax. Totals were down 20% from 2008 levels and down 54% from the peak in 2004. As a result, mortgage recording taxes represented only 3.9% of total town revenues in 2008 compared to 7.9% in 2004. Mortgage recording tax revenues would need to grow by over 15% a year for 5 consecutive years to return even to 2006 levels. And on the sales tax front, the note that gross sales tax collections declined by 5.9% in 2009 compared to 2008. Every region of the state and 53 of 57 counties experienced decreased sales tax collection, Westchester among them, and a growth rate of 6.3% in 2010 would be needed just to get back to 2008 levels, which is an unlikely scenario. So that kind of puts in context what we anticipate the world will look like for us as we continue on our budget work. And as those of you who watch on a regular basis are aware, we put in place some financial policies that we will be working on over the next several months, both to put in place a long-term capital plan and also to put in place some decisions about how to fund ongoing expenses for certain kinds of purchases that we have bonded in the past. So we have some tough work ahead of us. I am confident in saying that we're on the right track in having identified these challenges as the ones we need to meet. But I think the overall takeaway is that I think we have budgeted in a cautious manner, and certainly the preliminary indications in the current fiscal year suggest that our budget indications have been cautious and will be met, but we continue to struggle in fundamental ways to try to find a way to decrease the cost of government going forward so that the overall percentage of your dollar that's taken by your village taxes is lower 5 years from now than it is now. And that will be a tough slog, but we're on the mission. So then the last thing I wanted to comment on is that we have a resolution on tonight that is picking up for a resolution that was tabled 2 weeks ago, and that is to decommission a current crossing guard post and move that crossing guard post to a new location that is at Manville Road and Great Oak Lane, near the place where Edgewood and Wilton come down to Manville. So those of you who may have watched 2 weeks ago are aware that we have thought for some time that the post we would decommission is the one at Bedford and Marble Avenue, right in front of Jean-Jacques. Our thinking being that we are now nearly finished with a signalization project that includes a walk signal that allows people to arrive at that corner and push for a walk signal and get a countdown walk signal to cross the street. Now that that has actually been executed and is up and running, we've had some concerns about the right turn lane that exists in that area and whether in fact the walk signal is sufficiently protective to allow us to remove the crossing guard in that post. So while we continue to consider that, we've given consideration to any of the other crossing guards that might be repurposed to another location, and the proposal we will have on for resolution tonight is to move the crossing guard who is currently at Ashland Avenue and the middle school driveway. That is a relatively new crossing guard post that was posted there, I think, about 3 years ago, and move that person from that location where there has been relatively little crossing activity and put that person at the higher profile position of Manville and Great Oak. So we'll talk about that in the form of a resolution a little bit later down the road. And we've reached out to the school district to get their comments on that subject, and we'll want to be sure that we've had them back. But the plan that we will vote on tonight, contingent on getting further commentary from the school district, is to move the crossing guard from Ashland Avenue in the middle school driveway over to Great Oak Lane and Manville Road. Long-winded report. Anybody else have anything to add?
I'd just like to say, Peter, that in addition to your summary of the level or the position that the state may be in with regard to real estate, I've been receiving the agendas of the planning board, the ARB, and the zoning board as this board's liaison. I've been pleasantly surprised in this economy to see that those agendas are not dead, but are actually fairly active. I don't think our community is benefited as much as more in developed communities with the mortgage tax through sales of homes. We're fairly built out in that regard. Some communities were building so fast and furious that that was providing a tremendous amount of money, and particularly when residential development went south a few years back, that really hurt the revenues of those communities, disproportionate to the way in which it would affect our community. But I think while we're certainly not seeing an economic time at all similar to what it was just a few years ago, the state of New York as a whole, I think, in my opinion, and from what I see in working in this business in other various counties north of New York and in many different communities, Pleasantville is actually holding its own pretty well given the dire straits that we've been in with real estate development in particular. And it's not really been in the residential arena so much as it's been in the commercial arena. We've had a bunch of new development proposals that have been very interesting and will be exciting new ventures here within the village. We've discussed a number of them over the last 6 months and more, and including Almagier, which we're talking about selling potentially a piece of our property to down on Marble Avenue. But there's been a fair amount of activity in this village. And I would say that from my perspective, that we're positioned fairly well given how severe the downturn in the local economy has been.
I would agree. Certainly, I had a few conversations with colleagues elsewhere in the state, and upstate, not very far upstate even,
Right.
is in serious trouble. So, as Steve mentioned, Amangiari has purchased the former auto dealership and auto body property that is across from the football field on Marble Avenue, and will be moving to that location after an extensive renovation, so that's great news. The former Jackson and Wheeler restaurant is now under renovation right now and will become an Asian fusion restaurant. That is a long-awaited project that finally appears to be on track, and they've been working away, and that's why you see a dumpster there.
How much longer is that dumpster going to be out there?
I don't know, it's a series of dumpsters. It keeps
Do we
getting
know?
filled up, so.
I don't know, they expect to be open in November, but I'm sure the interior work will be
Yeah.
done.
I'm
way
not
before
sure
then.
that dumpster is moved, has it?
They've replaced it a number of times, but at any rate, although it's a frustration at the moment to have that piece of the curbside blocked, it's great news that that project is up and running, and
That's great.
that storefront, which is a really important and I think potentially great storefront, will become alive again. And we've mentioned in the past that Lucy's Lounge has been through the process and now has approvals to build an addition on the back of their property in the area that they currently have a open fenced-in garden courtyard. Will become an addition that will provide a restaurant and a party room. So they will be expanding as well. And as Steve mentioned, we continue to see interest on the part of lots of Pleasantville residents to improve their houses. And in some cases, I know a couple of people who've decided to stay put instead of move elsewhere or move bigger, and are doing some positive things to their homes as well. So there are certainly lots of positive stories in the mix. And as some of you are already aware, either through our announcements in the past or through the Examiner, we're in the process of purchasing on behalf of the village the Lane Plumbing property, and that is going to provide an additional source of parking for the downtown, and going forward in the long haul is going to give us quite a few different opportunities as an effort to foment some development, because I think all of us who sit here recognize with great clarity that the best way to get at the long-term fiscal issues we all confront is to foster some appropriate Pleasantville scale development and end up with more people sharing the tax burden together and reducing what has been a rather long distribution of the tax burden increasingly towards the residential side. So that's what we have on our mind here.
You know, I just have to say that, at least in my business, I get a lot of people from all over the tri-state area. And a lot of people are passing through Pleasantville a lot. And the comment that I get from people is that they feel like something is going on here. That, and these are people that, you know, don't come all that often to me.
That's
But they're seeing, they feel like something's happening here. Whereas in a lot of their own towns, they don't feel that. So I'm always proud when people say that. I really feel like we are all trying to do something, everybody downtown, and I think you really feel it. So
I was pleased. I was a little sorry the cameras had been turned off, but on Saturday when Andrea Stewart Cousins was doing her filming, after she had completed it, she hung around a while and was chatting with various other people, and a woman who came up and lives in another town to the north said that she always comes to Pleasantville for the farm market and is loving it even more this year than ever. And so I said, well, why don't you move here? And she said, well, that's our long-term plan. And then she said, whenever somebody says to me they're interested in moving to Westchester, I say, you got to look at Pleasantville. So it's
like people moving from Manhattan to Brooklyn. It's a lot like that. People moving from other towns to Pleasantville.
Well, and as you well know, you introduced me to a new neighbor of yours who moved from Brooklyn to Pleasantville. So
That's right.
Watch out, Manhattan and Brooklyn. You know, Pleasantville is
Place to be.
coming in new.
It's not just people who are hearing about the area for the first time. We have a new neighbor in the house next to us who, the husband of this family, grew up on Orchard.
Oh, really?
And they've moved back to Pleasantville after a stint in California.
Uh-huh.
And they came back here. It could have been anywhere in the metro area.
Uh-huh.
So it's interesting.
Well, it's a testimony to what all of you people do, all the residents of Pleasantville and all the business people in Pleasantville. It's a great place in many different ways, and a great place for many different reasons for many different people. You can mention any specific program or activity or tradition here in Pleasantville, and it may be of interest or it may not to an individual person, but collectively there's more going on here than in lots of communities our size, and that has mostly to do with the good spirit and the energy of all the people that live here. So
That's why we get plaques.
exactly.
How you get-
From the
10 out of
federal-
10. Yep.
Plaques from the federal
That's
government right there.
We'll unscrew the cover and put the next one into. So, unless there's something further to say on any of these many subjects, we will move to the resolutions. Number 101, Steve.
Resolved that the pre-check register dated August 9th, 2010, covering check numbers 67152 through 67269 has been reviewed and hereby approved as listed below. General fund, $187,511.83. Water fund, $12,492.83. Refuse fund, $2,947.52. Pool fund, $9,691.39, for a total of $212,643.57.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments or discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Ryan, number 102.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees has reviewed the minutes of the meeting held on Monday, July 26, 2010, and they are hereby approved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments, corrections?
I'll just comment that there is still a vacancy on the library board, the village vacancy. I think we should pay attention to that. We announced it in those minutes in that meeting, so it's not going away.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Steve.
Resolved, the Board of Trustees hereby accepts the donation from Estelle Herman in the amount of $1,000 towards the Clinton Street Senior Center programs.
Is there- All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, Estelle Herman. And thank you to Virginia and all the work she and her staff do at the Clinton Street Center to engender this kind of generosity. Resolution number 104, I think we're going to set aside. That is a proposal for a license agreement with Pleasantville Enterprises, LLC at 1 Broadway, having to do with and a landscaping easement associated with the development at the gas station in the Old Village. So that, I think, is a work session matter to discuss further, so we'll set that one aside. Number 105, Brian.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Pleasantville hereby authorizes the village clerk to prepare a notice for publication in the Journal News advising of the elimination of the school crossing guard post at Ashland Avenue and the Pleasantville Middle School driveway.
Is there a second?
Second.
So that is the resolution that I referred to earlier in the evening. We proposed to move the crossing guard from Ashland Avenue and the middle school driveway over to Manville Road and Great Oak Lane, which is a location that is a clear safety concern and one that has been a subject of some discussion for a year or more in the village. As I mentioned, I spoke to Mary Fox Alter, the superintendent of schools, about this. She wanted to get the commentary of a couple of other school administrators who were not available at the moment, but will be back in the next couple of days. So if it's okay with the mover, we will append to that contingent upon
Absolutely.
further comment by the school district. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved.
And we should say that we met with some of the residents who came in and presented us with petitions, and there's been quite a lot of discussion in the village about this.
That is residents who were
Residents
seeking the crossing
Who
guard.
are seeking the,
Yeah.
that's right. It's something we've been thinking about for quite some time. That's not necessarily what brought us over the edge, but it's always a great thing when neighborhoods get together and have an idea and talk to us about it. So-
We've been hearing from the neighborhood about this particular location for quite some time now. It's
That's right.
been not a flash in the pan, something that came up yesterday and there was a petition today. But
That's right.
something that we've been hearing about for the last maybe year or so.
Right.
And it's only been gaining a lot of support and interest within
Well,
that
we're
neighborhood.
approaching the beginning of school, so it's a logical time to do this. Think about
So
this.
we'll be noticing the removal of this crossing guard at Ashland and Middle School driveway because we're required to do that. And we'll also ask the school district to notice that in their preschool mailings and emails so that parents are fully aware of where we will have a crossing guard and where we won't. The crossing guard posts will be the same in every respect as they were last year, except no crossing guard at Ashland Avenue and the middle school driveway, and a new post at Great Oak Lane and Manville Road. And if we should receive any comments from the school district that cause us to change that plan, we will report that both on the website at our next meeting. So, all right, we voted on that, did we?
Yes.
Okay, Steve, 106.
Whereas on February 23rd, 1981, the Village Board of the Village of Pleasantville adopted a resolution electing to participate in a retirement plan for its police officers made available by the New York State and local retirement system pursuant to Section 375I of the New York State Retirement and Social Security Law, the Section 370I plan. And whereas at the present time, only 2 police officers have elected to participate in the Section 375I plan. And whereas the village participates in another retirement plan for its police officers through the New York State and local retirement system pursuant to Section 384D of the New York State Retirement and Social Security Law, the Section 384D plan, which plan would be available to the 2 officers presently enrolled in the Section 375I plan without any diminution.
Well
However,
said.
Well said. Any one of those 3.
That's right.
Of their vested retirement benefits, and whereas the village board finds that substantial financial savings can be achieved by withdrawing from participation in the Section 375I plan while continuing its participation in the Section 384D plan, and whereas the village board further finds that the best interests of all village residents as well as the members of its police department will be best served by rescinding its participation in the Section 375I plan, and whereas withdrawal from the Section 375I plan requires special legislation from the New York State Legislature, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Pleasantville hereby requests special legislation to withdraw from participating in Section 375I plan offered by the New York State and local retirement system, and be it further resolved that the village attorney is hereby directed to request that Senator Stuart Cousins of Cary and introduce special legislation to the New York State Assembly terminating the Village of Pleasantville's participation in the Section 375I plan.
Is there a second?
Second.
Patty, you want to summarize this alphabet soup?
Yeah, I do, thanks, and I just add a couple of comments to it. I think the effective date would end up being the effective date of the action in Albany, but what this intends to do is to restore our mandatory retirement age to that age which the state established for police officers uniformly throughout the state, which is 65. We passed some special legislation that extended it to age 70.
And that was 20 years ago or something?
About 20 or so years ago.
Right.
We currently have one officer under this plan. We don't have two, so two have taken advantage of it. One is active, one is retired since then. And I think the question for the Assembly is what the effective date would be. But other than that, it's an action that the board took unilaterally back in 1981. It's not a contractual obligation you have right now. With respect to the plan you must offer the police through a collective bargaining agreement. That is a 384D plan, which is a much more expensive plan. It's basically called the special plan, which allows any officer to retire after 20 years of service, no matter what his or her age is. So we already offer the Cadillac of Cadillacs for police retirement plans. This other,
As does everybody else.
as does almost everybody else. In Westchester, I think everybody offers.
Are there any
Departments that offer other plans, yes,
that don't permit the 20-year route?
yes.
It's worth pursuing. Okay.
Okay.
So in order to make this change, which for a variety of reasons we think is in the long-term interest of the village, Andrew Stewart Cousins will have to carry this to Albany and come back hopefully with a positive result, which we assume would be
Right.
forthcoming.
Because the law superseded state law when you first passed it, you have to have it also rescinded that way by the state legislature. It's a home rule action, so it has to be carried up to Albany.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. Number 107, Brian.
Resolved
That's
that
107, right?
Yes.
Judy?
Oh, yes, sorry.
the last one was 106. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Pleasantville hereby authorizes the village clerk to notice a public hearing for Monday, August 23rd, 2010, 8:30 p.m. prevailing time, to hear comments as it pertains to a local law amending Chapter 173, Vehicles and Traffic, Sections 173-60, 173-75, 173-68, 173-54, and 173-58 as follows. Section 1, amending Chapter 173, Vehicles and Traffic, Section 173-60, 173-75, 68, 54, and 58. The first one is Section 173-60, Schedule 12, parking prohibited at all times. We're talking about adding on Cooley Street, the east side, that's the Mediterranean side, I think, at a location from Bedford Road, corner of Bedford Road north, that means in, for 265 feet, and Cooley Street east from Bedford Road north from a point 301 feet to a point 385 feet. The next section, 173-75, Schedule 28, parking meter zones. Again, we're adding at Cooley Street on the east side in a parking meter 2-hour time limit from Bedford Road north from a point 265 feet to a point of 301 feet. And finally, section 173-68, Schedule 20, loading zones on Cooley Street, the east side, from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. be a loading zone from Bedford Road north from a point 45 feet to a point 86 feet.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's
So-
two more on the next.
That's part of the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay, section 173-54, I thought you'd give that to Steve.
I
Section 6.
I rescind my second.
Yeah, prohibited turns, this is fascinating, it's like describing a painting,
I
isn't it?
know,
You don't have a
we'll
map.
get to it.
Prohibited, this is a public hearing, by the way, don't pay attention too closely. Schedule 6, prohibited turns at intersections Add, name the street Memorial Plaza, going west, prohibited turn left all hours at the intersection of Memorial Plaza and Cooley Street, going south, prohibited turn left. As you're leaving Mediterranean, you won't be able to turn left all hours onto Bedford Road. And finally, section 173-57, Schedule 9, stop intersections. First one is add a stop sign on Marble Avenue going south at the intersection of Bedford Road, and a stop sign on Bedford Road if you're traveling on Bedford Road going south at the intersection of Pleasantville Road. Got that?
Well, we'll illustrate it, but yeah, that's
Is there a
very
second?
good.
Just before we second this, where is Marble Avenue going south, intersecting Bedford Road?
That's that strange right turn yield at Jean, right at the corner of.
That's the free right turn, the much discussed free right
the
turn.
code used to describe it as heading west, which nobody liked that.
So
we
it's
changed
actually
it
the
to-
beginning, the north end
That's
of
right.
Marble. The
Right,
northerly,
right
right at the
side, yeah.
intersection, because
That's
across
right.
the street is Memorial
And the
Plaza.
other is right around the Citgo station where you just turn
Right.
by Heller's. Yeah.
Okay, I was trying to understand that
Yeah, I was
intersection
trying to
before when
think
I was
that too,
reading through
but-
it. Second.
All right, and the rest of that is simply ratifying the change that's already happened.
Yes, on
Of
Cooley
putting,
Street. Right.
if any of you have been over by Cooley Street and the area of Mediterraneo, the parking has been moved to the other side of the parking lot, which I think has worked out
Oh, it looks good and it worked
very,
out
very well and has benefited us in a number of ways and is the sort of last step in the reconfiguration of the entrance there.
So we're not really, we're officially noticing a public hearing, but we've already done it.
We've done some of it. We've done the west side of Cooley
Oh,
Street, the
right,
2-hour
but
median
the
parking
loading
is done.
zones and
That's
all
all
that
new.
stuff, that has to be done.
Right.
And that's
Well,
what we're enabling
And
here.
we need to clean up the code
to clean it
now
up.
Right.
to reflect that. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. All right, that being the end of our resolutions, anyone have any further business, new reports?
No, sir.
We're happy to report that Steve is no longer wearing a sling,
That's correct.
indication of his further healing. This gives you a chance to make your pitch for bike helmets one more time.
That's right. Gotta wear those bike helmets when you pitch over and hit the pavement. There's a lot at risk up here. Well, for some of us, maybe more than others, but I suspect less if you're not wearing a helmet. But certainly, the first thing I think, as I mentioned when I showed up in the sling 4 weeks ago, that everybody asked me, from the ambulance corps, the police officers at the scene, to the receiving nurse at Westchester Medical Center, to the attending physician, to the x-ray technician, were you wearing a helmet? I had to say, if I broke my shoulder hitting the road at 30 miles an hour, I wasn't wearing a helmet. A lot of other things would have been on that road. But it's so important. I continue to see adults and kids around town on bicycles without helmets, and it's just very foolish. It's something that people should pay attention to. If you're an adult and you don't feel it's necessary because you would never fall or take a spill, at least do it to give a good example to the kids who may not be quite as expert as you are in bicycling.
Well, further, you're a pretty experienced bicyclist yourself, and
Yeah, I've been biking for a lot of years, and the interesting thing is, and somebody pointed out to me when we were discussing this, you rarely, if ever, see someone who looks to be a serious biker with the road or race bike who's out and obviously pedaling along and has all the gear and so forth without a helmet. What you see as far as individuals without helmets are recreational bicyclists and kids who are out just around town, and this can be, you can be in some very dangerous situations where a helmet, not just for cyclists but also for skateboarders, inline skaters, and even what do you call those little things you hop on?
This is Razor scooters?
Scooters,
Yeah.
exactly. They're all subject to falling, and typically you're on pavement, and it can really do a lot of damage that's completely avoidable if you just take the the minute or two to strap on a helmet. And the new helmets, been around for a while. I think they're so new. A lot of ventilation in top. It's not like wearing a football helmet in the middle of the summer. So it's comfortable gear, and once you get used to it, you completely forget you're wearing it. Good
And
thing to do.
you're here to help tell the story because you had one on. So.
Right.
That reminds me to comment as part of our discussion about crossing guards and driver behavior at intersections and its effect on school kids trying to get to school. I've talked to the police chief a couple of times and continue the conversation today about establishing in September a more visible police presence at high-profile locations and at prominent areas of congestion on the routes to schools and around the schools themselves, not only to create a deterrent presence, but also to undertake a mission to reduce the amount of speeding, to reduce the amount of cell phone use, and to increase driver attention. Because there are lots of people guilty of it. I think a lot of people feel as though when they're only driving a few blocks to take their kids to school, it's not really driving, and it turns out that a cell phone in one hand and a coffee cup in the other doesn't leave you much attention to keep your hands on the wheel. So that's going to be a point of focus for the police department this fall when school is reopened, on behalf of the safety of pedestrians in general, and not looking to harm anybody's interest. But if you are driving in an unsafe manner or violating the law, you're liable to get caught for it, and so we encourage you to stay within the white lines, both literally and figuratively. Our next regular meeting is Monday, August 23 at 8 p.m. with a work session at 7, so we encourage you to tune in or visit us 2 weeks from now. Otherwise, we hope you have a great 2 weeks. Hope you're going to go someplace fun or cool at some point during it. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion
Aye.
adjourned. Good night. See you on Monday, August 23.